To you all, it's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just the Facts. Tonight, we're going to have a powerful discussion. We have our sister Kathleen Parks, who is the commissioner, if I'm correct, out of Louisville, Kentucky. She's going to give us a little bit of the history of DOAS, Mr. Shelton Norris. Or am I saying it right? Norris Shelton or Shelton Norris?
Dr. Norris Shelton.
Not Norris Shelton. And, we're just going to have a little discussion tonight, family. Make sure y'all click the like button. Make sure y'all share this out. If you would like to contribute to the platform, you can use the super chat. You can donate at the via Cash App at BETHEPOWER. And if you want to become a monthly contributor, you can join our Patreon. The link is in the description. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand my hosting duties off to my brother Grimm. He contacted our family out there in Louisville, Kentucky. And, I think that this is a part of the story that needs to be heard because there are many hands in this fight for reparations. And it is not confined to one or two people or one particular group. If it's about lineage, then it's about us all. And we cannot let any tyrants, and I got to call them how I feel that they're tyrants, try to come in and say that the road to reparations runs through them and them only. That's just not how this thing works. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to my brother Grimm. I'm gonna mute out until I have any questions, and take it away, brother.
Peace, peace. Greetings, everyone. Glad you all are able to join us tonight on Be the Power. We have a great and interesting show. We have the First Lady of Reparations of the the Descendants of American Slaves here on Be the Power. And this is something that was long overdue. We reached out to Dr. Sheldon, and he basically sent us to the First Lady to talk about the Descendants of American Slaves. And if you want to know more about this organization, correct me if I'm wrong, sister, but the website is www.slaves-usa.com. Right, thank you. And sister, I just want to start this off. We basically, we needed to put this out there. I'm gonna say this first. We needed to put this video out there because we know that there's a lot going on in the world of reparations, in the world of actually claiming this actual lineage as descendants of slaves, as freedmen. None of this was done before. And, as so-called African Americans, we basically were reaching way back into history. Many of us were all kinds of different things as opposed to identifying our actual lineage that was fueled in the fires of the hells of chattel slavery. So First Lady Kathleen, you want to tell us about yourself, tell us about who you are and the things that you have done in Louisville?
Certainly. Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me to your show. I'm impressed already. As you mentioned, I am First Lady of Reparations for Slavery through American Slaves, Inc., Incorporated. I was appointed to that position several years ago when Dr. Norris Shelton appeared on my Top News radio show several years ago. I was introduced to him by Pastor James Elliott, who is president of the local chapter of Descendants of American Slaves Ministerial Alliance in Louisville, Kentucky. He's on the board of the other organization. I wear various hats. I'm president of the state chapter of the National Action Network, also in Louisville, Kentucky. As you well know, those of you guys that are out of New York, I'm sure you're familiar with Reverend Al.
Oh, yeah.
And my path with Reverend Al led me to Dr. Norris Shelton, the most brilliant man I know on this planet. And so we met then, and then we developed a relationship, and that's where we are today. I'm also county commissioner in Louisville, Kentucky. I recently got reelected at the last general election with over 258,000 votes. I received more votes than the Congressman John Yarmouth, who represents our Louisville, Kentucky, city of Louisville, Kentucky, and Lexington. And so this path has been an eye opener for me. I'm also an adjunct professor at Bellarmine University, which also took me on the path of meeting Dr. Norris Shelton. Over 5 years ago, I started teaching Introduction to Social Justice and Civil Rights. And at that particular time, and I'm being facetious, but I thought I had all the answers then about social justice and civil rights until I met Dr. Shelton and started researching his books and information. Dr. Shelton, his first book came out in 2001. It's one thing that I've learned from Donald Trump: you better fact check everything. And so in 2001, Dr. Norris Shelton wrote his first book. It's called America's Little Black Book. It's our Bible, an almanac for descendants of American slaves. It's got all the information you would want to know, that you were curious about, but maybe wasn't certain about, how we became descendants of American slaves. And as you mentioned, and I want to mention it again, the website for ordering books is www.slaves-usa.com. So this is the first book. He's written over 18 books. He's in the process of writing his 19th book now. And he just completed his recent book entitled Spiritual Enslavement of the American Slave Nation. So I don't know of any other person on this planet that has written this type of material on American slave history. You have scholars that have written information on Pan-African studies, so forth and so on, so-called African-American history, Black history, but no one but Dr. Norris Shelton has achieved the level of writing and scholarship that he has achieved. A self-taught gentleman out of the South. He's 84 years old. He's self-taught. I don't think he got past the 8th grade. I tease him all the time and tell him he is the Muhammad Ali of the American slave cultural movement. No one can touch him when it comes to his writing and his scholarship. And as a matter of fact, several years ago, during the time that we met, he was bestowed an honorary degree from Simmons College of Kentucky, which is led by Dr. Kevin Cosby. Simmons College is an HBCU. And Dr. Kevin Cosby met Dr. Shelton through, again, Pastor James Elliott, who's president chairman of Descendants of American Slaves Ministerial Alliance. And so I'm trying to paint a picture of relationships that were cultivated as a result of this man's body of work, almost 19 books at 84 years old. And so as I started reading America's Little Black Book, and then also he introduced me to the Renaissance Plan. The Renaissance Plan, which is another pathway to economic emancipation, i.e. the Reparations economic plan. It's all here. It's all here. And I want to make sure that you guys get a copy of it as well to study it for yourself.
Yes, yes.
So I'm an avid reader. I'm a voracious reader. I read everything. I love to read. Read. And I believe that's probably the quintessential reason why many of us are not familiar with Dr. Norris Shelton. And I hate to say it, when we were slaves, you know, we weren't permitted to read. It was illegal for slaves to read. I think the 400 years, the after effects of 400 years of slavery is still upon us today, because many of us feel we don't have to read. I mean, you know, the beginnings of social media platforms and so forth and so on. And don't get me wrong, social media in its place is valuable, it's needed, all of that, but I think that it has deterred us away from the enjoyment and the power of reading. And so that's a lot of the challenge that we have been dealing with. The book before his recent book, COVID-19 Windfall, a powerful book. It's talking about how this pandemic has influenced America, how it has influenced the American slave culture. And you notice that I'm saying American slave culture. And if I could, can I continue to speak, or did you have any other questions as I move forward?
You can go ahead. I have some questions, but you can continue your pattern of expression. Yes.
Okay, thank you. COVID-19, the COVID-19 virus, from my perspective and also Dr. Norris's perspective, just simply pulled the sheet off of what we already knew, that systemic racism is alive and well in America. We didn't need the virus to tell us that. We already knew it.
That's right.
But simply put, the virus just awakened us to the racism that we already knew. It just reared its ugly head one more time in America. This is the second 400 years. We've gone through the first 400 years of wandering, you know, wandering in the wilderness of slavery. Now we're in the second 400 years of this dilemma. This is an awakening period of us understanding that no, we are not African Americans. African Americans are immigrants that come from the continent of Africa. I've traveled to both West Africa and South Africa. Africa is the most beautiful continent in the world. Yes, it is the motherland, but it is not the home, the authentic home of descendants of American slavery. When we were enslaved, and I'm just speaking figuratively, our ancestors, when they were captured in Africa and brought to, for example, Jamestown, Virginia, to the slave block, we did not see the Statue of Liberty as the immigrants saw when they came to the New World, New York City. When they came to New York and saw the Statue of Liberty, we didn't see that. We saw slave masters, slave breeders, slave sellers. Slavery was a business. We were a commodity, a product, a labor force. If you take the emotion out of it, you will be able to understand that it was a business all along, a commerce. The Department of Commerce to this day was based on the backs of the labor force of American slaves. Now, why should we embrace that name? In the Constitution, prior to the Civil War ending, the 3/5 compromise. Are you guys familiar with that? The 3/5 compromise?
Yes, ma'am. Very.
Yes,
We
indeed.
did shows on it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Where we were considered 3/5 human, if that, because our ancestors were considered animals. We were never considered really human beings. So when they came out with the 13th Amendment that supposedly abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, and then the 15th Amendment that allowed Black men the right to vote, we thought that we were granted full citizenship. Wrong, we were not. Of course, then we had the Voting Rights Act. That got gutted. Section 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act was gutted. That's why Stacey Abrams lost the election, her plight to run for governor in Atlanta, because Brian Kemp was running for governor and was overseeing the election at the same time. Not only is that unethical, it should be illegal. And it was, until the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. That's why it's so important that we in Congress get the John Lewis Voting Protection Act, okay, in place.
Right.
That's also why we should get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, although it needs more teeth in it from my perspective. But let me get back to, I digress a little bit, but let me get back to the African American piece. In order to be African American in this country, you must be certified through the immigration system. Are you guys certified through the immigration system as an African American?
No.
I know I'm not.
No.
I'm
Not
not.
at all. Right.
We are not certified.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In the Constitution, we are not certified. It does not refer to, you know, in the media, and of course, we're all media people here, but in the media, they often refer to people of color, Black and brown communities, all of these generic terms, minorities. There are many terminologies that they classify us as: Black, colored, Negro, the other N word, minorities, people of color, Black and brown communities. Why can't we get to the point and say that we are descendants of American slaves? Think about it.
Right.
Because they owe us, okay? They base their taxation system on slaves, okay? And so this is a very, very, very serious matter. And I can understand why people may look upon it as a cash cow, so to speak, or I'm not saying that everyone is looking at it in that through those lenses, but this is a very, very serious situation that we are in. And this is no time for us to be divided. This is the second 400 years. We've got to come together. We've got to come together. And so those individuals, I know there are many individuals, many names out there. Adolf is one of them. American enslaved people. I mean, there's so many names, but the true founder and father of the American slave cultural nation is Dr. Norris Shelton.
Yes, and that's exactly what we wanna get into, because you know you all were the first. The concept and the idea of this basically came out of the research and the mind of Dr. Norris Shelton. So I just want to piggyback on that last statement. I want to ask, first I want to ask, what year did Dr. Shelton start his particular work in revealing the actual original concept of American descendants of slaves out there? Because I mean, this is a controversial topic for us, because I'm asking this question about when did he start, because I basically want to establish a pattern that the people who are claiming ADOS and things of that nature, they weren't the first to actually to do this movement. And we pointed out on the show before that it was Dr. Norris Shelton, and it's ironic. And we had a conversation, personal conversation about this, but we found it ironic that the founders of the ADOS movement had their convention in the actual city of the original founding of the American descendants of slaves, or descendants of American slaves. We want to talk about that. We want you to talk about that, but we also want you to talk about the history of Reverend Cosby in that, because, you know, there are some naysayers and they're denying, you know, their actual connection to the original works of Dr. Sheldon. And they act like he don't exist, number one, and act like it's something foreign that they don't want to address. I know this is a controversial topic and we need to be working together and coming together, but we need to discuss that. This come out of Louisville. They were American descendants of slavery before Tone and Yvette actually did their work. So could you talk about, because they are affiliated with Dr. Cosby, who's probably the usurper, if you will, of the American descendants of slavery concepts that come from Dr. Shelton, and these people are basically just the mouthpiece in the face for it. Would you like to discuss that history?
Based on my research, ADOS was founded around the same time that I met, or maybe a year, around the same time that I met Dr. Norris Shelton, which was back in 2018 or 2017, I would estimate. And you can Google it, and that's what I discovered. But what happened was ADOS came on the scene soon after Dr. Norris received his honorary doctorate from Simmons College in 2018.
So Dr. Sheldon has a honorary doctorate from the same institution that Dr. Cosby oversees, that Reverend Cosby oversees.
Yes, absolutely.
So they knew each other basically. So
yes.
they're okay.
Oh,
and
wow.
why did Reverend Cosby bestow the honorary doctorate on Dr. Sheldon?
From what I understand, Dr. Shelton informed me that they had a meeting, and Dr. Shelton, who was introduced by Pastor James Elliott, again, who was the chairman of DOAS, Descendants of American Slaves Ministerial Alliance, he was so excited for Dr. Norris to meet Dr. Cosby, because he was so proud of the work that Dr. Norris had pulled together. All right. And I knew of Dr. Norris a few years before that, because we had a celebration. I think it was the 18th celebration. It might have been 17th or 18th. It must have been the 17th celebration at the Capitol in Frankfort, Kentucky, to celebrate the anniversary of the Descendants of American Slaves, the American slaves founding, which began in 2001. So do the math, and you will see very easily who the founder is. 2001.
Right.
And actually before that, because he was already working, putting the body of work together at that particular time.
Right. So
But
we
that
talking
first
way
book,
back in 2001.
yes,
Mm,
almost 20 years ago.
right.
So
Okay,
when he met Dr. Cosby, and I was not in the dialogue, I was not in the conversation. This is what was shared with me by both parties, Pastor James Elliott and Dr. Norris Shelton. So Dr. Cosby became overwhelmed. He cried. He was really impressed with Dr. Norris's body of work. Dr. Norris wanted to work with Dr. Cosby, as far as I was informed, but that did not happen. And let me say this, I've known Dr. Cosby all of my life. I took piano lessons, classical piano lessons, from his mother, the late Clara Cosby. Beautiful woman, brilliant woman. And Dr. Cosby is just like his mother, brilliant like she is. I have all the respect in the world for Dr. Cosby. And I understand his position in terms of reparations for historically Black colleges and university. And I've been very open about that, as I am with you today. I have nothing to hide. But I do feel at this point there needs to be, it's time, it's overtime for all of us to come together at the table and have a truth and reconciliation with each other. We're all on the same path. We may have had different methods of getting there. I don't know the minds. I don't know them personally, Yvette or Antonio. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting them. But if I did, what I would say is, let's work together. We have more to gain together than apart, and with separate agendas. We cannot win divided. That's what I would say to them. And I'm hoping and I'm appealing to them to come out of the shadows. And I am not into bashing people, but I am into the truth.
So let me ask.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, let me say rather, there are a lot of able-bodied individuals all across the nation who have seen that movement for what it was, and they're ready to do real reparations work. So insofar as us coming together, I don't think that would be an issue, because when I say there's a lot of people, and I mean people that really put in work in the community, who are gathering right now to form what we're calling a reparationist coalition or a reparationist collective. And what this is a bunch of different groups, different names, that have the same goals, no big I's, no little U's. So, we can put the call out for those who are willing to work together. Not everybody's willing to work together. Some people feel that this is their personal sandbox and nobody's allowed to play in it. But reparations as a discussion, reparations as a thing for those of us who descend from the freedmen here in America is not confined to a sandbox. It is a vast beach. So, I just wanted to add that in there for those who are watching and saying that there is a reparationist coalition being formed. And the only thing we have to do is reach out to each other and work together and push forward. Let's bring the things that we have to the table, sort them out so that we can forge the best path forward. So I just wanted to interject with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ditto to everything. You took the words right out of my mouth, young blood. Right out of my mouth and my mind and my heart and my soul. And we've got to, all politics is local. We have been fighting tooth and nail here in Louisville, Kentucky to get a reparations economic recovery bill and legislation passed here at the Metro Council level and also at the state level.
Well, can I ask? I'm sorry, sis.
Go ahead.
What is the status on that particular bill?
It is right now is standing still because we have our brothers and sisters who are gatekeepers, and forgive them. What did Jesus say? Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. They don't understand. The mayor put out a plan in which, and he is president of the National Conference of Mayors, Mayor Greg Fisher, and they have a national plan that they're promoting called Racism is a Public Health Crisis. Okay, we all know that, duh. But it really doesn't have any meat on the bone. And they're still talking about HR 40, studying reparations. If we study reparations anymore, I'm gonna, well, you understand what I mean.
Right.
We don't need to study it anymore, we need to do it. And we need our leaders in Congress and in the Senate to pass a Reparations Economic Recovery Act. I've been told by many politicians that the term reparations is the problem. Don't call it reparations. Call it something else. But haven't we been going through that for 400 years? We've been called something else. Where has it gotten us? And today we're referred to, our communities are referred to Black and brown communities, minorities, people of color. And when the contracts come up to be bidded upon in terms of putting economic development in our communities, very often we lose because we are classified in that scheme of jargon, political jargon, minority. We're not minorities. We're not people of color.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to, get some context on the things that are being done out there. Forgive me for cutting you off.
Oh no, go ahead.
We had a young brother on our platform that we interviewed that's on the Metro Council. I think I'm saying that Metro City Councilman, brother Jacory Arthur. What is his role in that bill, if you know, insofar as getting it passed or pushing it in the state Senate of Kentucky?
I know that Jacory has been newly elected as the council person, I think District 4. Don't hold me to that. But he's a newly elected Metro Council person. I congratulate him for that. I have reached out to him several times. My calls have not been returned. But I do know that he has a relationship with President of DOAS, and I'm hoping, my hope is, and I feel that it's going to happen very soon, that we will be able to sit down and discuss a strategy for American Slaves, Inc., along with ADOS through Simmons College of Kentucky. And so we've invited him to several meetings, but we have not been able to, for whatever reason. I can't speak for him. I wouldn't dare do that. but from what I understand, he's a decent brother. And I think that if he took some time to read the materials, especially this book, America's Little Black Book, he would gain a greater understanding and grasp of the Dr. Shelton's work. And so that's my perspective. That's my perspective on Ja'Cory. But so far, nothing has happened on the legislation. They're sitting on it. They're afraid of it, of not being politically correct.
Right.
And so
I'm surprised he hasn't contacted you yet. You know, he comes from a school of thought along the same lines of philosophy as the Descendants of American Slaves. So that's surprising to me that he hasn't reached out to build, because that's what this thing is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about moving forward the agenda of the race, the agenda of the nation, and moving forward, raising our people, you know, up from a dead level. And you know, and this is the problem that we are basically having, because I mean, and I really need to address this. Excuse me. Basically, what people have done, they have taken like this movement for reparations, Descendants of American Slaves, or what have you, and they've turned these things into a personal aggrandizement movement, as opposed to a movement of all of us. So, you know, and that's the issue that we are having, you know, with ADOS. We know that it doesn't involve you all, but I you know, have to speak, because when they first start, see, Dr. Shelton, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Shelton started this as a movement, as an organization with a hierarchical structure, with officers in place, with incorporations in place, a name, and as you have displayed on your screen, a beautiful flag. So this was actually an institution, a structure actually put together to move forward the agenda of the descendants of slaves or freedmen. Now, when the whole DOAS thing started, it was supposed to have been a hashtag on YouTube or Facebook and, you know, the various social media. And when these people were espousing this about ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, basically they said that it wasn't an organization, and the brothers on here can correct me if I'm wrong. They were saying that it wasn't an organization. They were saying that it was a leaderless movement. And when people were starting to stand up and say, okay, it's a leaderless movement, so we'll have people in Cincinnati doing this, people in California doing that, people in Louisiana doing this. So when these, you know, these happenstance chapters started popping up, now there's this confusion. So these people who were saying, oh, I'm not your leader, I'm not your leader, now all of a sudden they have become the leader, because all of these chapters and things of that nature come together. When Dr. Norris Shelton had already established the institution, they started a leaderless movement. Now they want to be the leaders of it and claim the slave culture. Would you like to speak on that?
I think you spoke on it rather well. That's exactly what has occurred. But again, you know, if it ever went in a court of law, it could be easily proven who coined the phrase American slave culture, Descendants of American Slaves, and who has written all the material. You know, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come to that. I'm praying that it doesn't come to that, you know, but I understand, again, that Dr. Cosby, in his excitement and exuberance and passion for wanting to gain reparations for historical Black colleges and universities, i.e. Simmons College of Kentucky. I understand that. And I have no problem with that. But as you mentioned, ASI, American Slaves Incorporated, was already established. As you see, we have our flag. He has 19 books that he's written. I launched the first American Slave History Inaugural Academy back in October. It was a total success. We're moving forward. And so I really cannot really respond to why they're doing what they're doing. They have to speak for themselves as to why they feel that they own the movement. But you're right, they don't.
Thank you. So I would like to ask you about Dr. Martin Luther King, because when I talked to Dr. Sheldon, he basically, I mean, we talked a few minutes, but he said some things. He didn't really go into detail. Maybe he was kind of busy. But he said that he was studying and researching Dr. King, and he said that he was wondering what Dr. King was talking about, and then through years of research and study, he figured that out. So you all were the first to link the descendants of slave movement to the work of Dr. King. So would you like to speak on that for a second?
Absolutely. I've taught on Dr. King for years, and I might add that I've had close to 30 years of social justice and activism work under my belt. Dr. King, the most famous civil rights leader that we know of, and of course, he founded his nonviolent movement he patterned his movement and modeled it after Mahatma Gandhi from India. And you don't hear many pastors even mention that from the pulpit. But that's where Dr. King was able to, how he was able to create
Okay, look like we having some technical difficulty, and yeah, we having a little bit of technical difficulty. Sister Kathleen, you still there?
It looked like she appears to be frozen, probably a Wi-Fi issue or something. But
Okay.
And the sister is bringing some amazing revelations to the forefront. And, you know, she said that she's all about truth. And I'm glad she said that, because everybody that knows us knows that's what we're about. And truth is the adhesive that binds harmony and justice together. She said she was desirous of harmony and togetherness and collective work. The only way we can get to that point is to be truthful about the origins of things and the state of affairs that are in our present day and time. And I don't know if anybody's been through Kentucky or Louisville, but that's not a big place. That's a very small place. And all the people who are connected to the ADOS movement, who are religiously listen to Breaking Brown and Tone Talks, they watched the program that they did, and they watched how they denied even the acknowledgement of these people. And they act like they never knew they existed. There's no way that they could be connected to Dr. Cosby, have done an ADOS conference in Louisville, Kentucky, have made all these same connections that have already been made decades before them coming into the knowledge of these things and coming into this movement. There's no way they could be ignorant of these people's existence when they've ran elections and they had Descendant of American slaves on the ballots in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
They ran officials. This sister, according to her bio, is the county commissioner out there. So how can you not know who these people are? And how can you not give them their credit? I was raised to give credit where credit is due and to honor those who have labored from my benefit. So when you have people who have blazed a trail and then you have walked that path behind them, and then you don't acknowledge those who led the way and left their footprints clearly cut for you to mold and shape your thing, to me, that is injustice. And I'm all about justice. We are all about justice. These great elders have laid the political, philosophical, and historical groundwork for what people are saying that they founded. Now, I'm all about harmony and collective work, but without truth, we can't have harmony. Without truth, we can't have togetherness, and we can't really work together, right? Because we have tares in the wheat field who are trying to deceive our people and trying to fleece the sheep. We can't have that. And I am a little bit off-put by myself for not, I'm a little hard on myself for not digging into you all's history prior to just recently. I should have dug deeper into that, because that's what we're all about, getting to the root of things. And the work Dr. Shelton did, the political groundwork that you all laid in Louisville, Kentucky, needs to be acknowledged. It should be honored, and it should be recognized. And the fact that I don't know if you were on, I see you're on now. I don't know if you were on when I said this before, but anyone hasn't visited the state of Kentucky, particularly Louisville, it's not a very big place. So I find it hard. I don't know if you follow Breaking Ground Media or Tone Talks, but they did a program denying you all's existence and tried to say that there was no connection to your philosophy, no connection to your aims and objectives. And basically, you all were an insignificant group who was off the mark. I'm not making that up. That's what they said. So after we did some investigation, we said, hold on now, how can you be from Louisville, have this institution who has ran for people for political office? They had an ADOS calling to put write in ADOS on the ballot. And we saw through our own investigation that that's a political strategy that we saw you all doing. We saw where they were writing in Descendants of American Slaves on the ballot. We just talked about the Dr. King connection, and they said that their movement was rooted in King's work. And you already just talked about how Dr. Shelton unearthed that knowledge a long time ago and made it known. They said that the person who backs them and who is their financial backing, and the person who has undergirded their movement, had a relationship with Dr. Cosby. Not only had a relationship with Dr. Shelton, but gave him an honorary degree from his institution that he leads and oversees. So to me, in order to work with truth and harmony and collectiveness, we got to get to that truth part. That truth part has to be known. A lot of our people are scared, or I don't even want to say scared, but they're reluctant to really speak the truth because of the backlash that comes with it. Truth is not always pleasing, and sometimes, and it creates a lot of turbulence. But it's a necessary thing. We have to be about. Dr. King was about the truth, and it caused a lot of problems for Dr. King. So we have to move in that same spirit. That brother loved his people, and he understood the sacrifice that it took. Sometimes people that you love going to fall out with you for speaking the truth, but the truth must be spoken. And we want to be here, and that's what we've always been about since we've been in this movement, is to reveal the truth and honor those who deserve to be honored, who put the work in. And we are honored today to have you on our program so that we can talk about the true history of the fact. Because when I was listening to you talk earlier, it sounded a lot like y'all were the first ones who really brought forth that lineage talk, that specificity talk that you hear people talking about so much. You said they call us all these other names, but we're specific people. It sounds like that identity talk was something that you all baked, and the recipe that you all came up with, Dr. Shelton and others, and brought to the people. So being that you all are in Louisville, working in the same small town, I find it quite odd that those individuals who are the loudest now want to deny the acknowledgement of you all's existence. I think it's a shame. And we just wanted to talk about that and bring the truth to the people tonight. And we really appreciate you coming on to our program, sister. I just wanted to really thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, I just wanted to put up, let's put up, Naheem, let's put up a screen share real quick of Dr. Sheldon, the political work that they were doing. Great. So, with all of this political talk about being involved in politics, Sister Kathleen Parks, Dr. Sheldon, and others who are part of the American Descendants of Slaves were already actually doing this work. As Brother Naheem put up the actual ballot of what they were doing. So remember what Logic was talking about. They was telling people to put DOAS on the ballot. We see here. Sister Kathleen, could you tell us what year this was?
2012.
So 2012, way back in 2012, the Honorable Dr. Sheldon was telling people to put Descendants of American Slaves on the ballot. They have it on the ballot right here. And we showing you all that evidence. So this is nothing that just flew out of the sky. This came out of the mind of a brilliant man who we, the brothers of BTP, believe is not getting his fair share of the acknowledgement. So I'm excited about this this show, Sister Parks, because we need to give this man his credit for actually doing this work. And the man himself actually ran for office, and that's the whole thing. I don't know if you're aware of Sister Johnson Shealy, who ran on a reparations agenda in Georgia recently. And if I'm not mistaken, brothers, I think she came up 6 on the ballot, and that's after what's the Reverend name?
That's correct. Warnock.
That's after Reverend Warnock. So you all were actually doing this work. So I want to ask you all, how many? And we were looking at you all profiles. You're professionals, really intelligent, brilliant people. So how many people with the American Descendants of Slaves now actually hold office in Kentucky, in Louisville?
I'm the only one that holds office. I'm the county commissioner.
Yes, that's beautiful. But you all are politically active as a group, because I know Dr. Sheldon is always busy. I'm pretty sure you busy, but you all as a group are politically active, as you were talking about, in Louisville politics. Is that a correct assessment?
Correct. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Dr. Shelton ran for senator back in 2012 with the Descendants of American Slaves political party. But getting back to what you were saying earlier, it's the old saying that if you want to hide anything from Black folk, put it in a book. So I think a lot of that is what has occurred, because and then, of course, I'm not making excuses for those that, as you have said, have their own agendas. But Dr. Cosby didn't even find out about this until, like I said, about 2 or 3 years, about 3 years ago, about this movement. And he was so excited about it. And then ADOS developed from there. So again, where do we go from here? I heard the brother talking about developing, Naheem talking about coalitions. Oh yes, this is the time. When President Obama was in office, he said, when he was running for office during his campaign, he said, this is our moment and this is our time. But it really wasn't. But this for sure is our moment and our time. All right. We can either embrace it or we can destroy it through the Willie Lynch syndrome. So we have to decide what direction we really want to go. We can't do it divided. We've got to all come together and march on Washington, so to speak, and demand a reparations economic recovery act. I have given this Renaissance plan to many of the candidates that were running for the presidential candidacy. They were candidates for presidents. And I gave each one of them a copy of this Renaissance plan. All right. And many individuals in the media, I'm not going to call any names, have ignored it because it's not politically correct. The networks don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Because if they talk about it, then President Biden would have to sign an executive order allocating reparations for descendants of American slaves. When I was looking at him today, signing all of those executive orders, and since he got in office, he's been signing executive orders, and I said, wow, if he could just only put that pen to that executive order saying, I declare today that descendants of American slaves will receive their reparations. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Beautiful.
That'd be outstanding. I think that's a very important distinction that y'all made about connecting yourself to the actual people and not just the institution itself. Some people think that making that institutional connection is the strongest connection to make, but in the movement about lineage, connecting yourself to the actual individuals, we are actually the descendants of the slaves. That's an important distinction, in my opinion, to make, because this was done to our ancestors. This was done to our family members. So just to say and put all the focus on the institution itself and not talk about the people and make the strongest connection is to the people, to our family members. A lot of people still don't want to digest all of that and really accept the fact that we are descendants of American slaves. That's who we are. Me and the brothers, we have found a company, corporation that we founded called the Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, because we are the sons and daughters of the emancipated persons who were the slaves. My grandmother's great-grandmother was born in 1834. She was a slave on the Purdue plantation in Georgia. I'm not ashamed of that. You have to know that. You have to accept that. And that needs to be the rooting and the basis of your reparations work. So I appreciate y'all bringing that specificity. I appreciate y'all bringing that history and all the work that y'all have done. I really appreciate y'all.
Yeah, because I want to add this. Hey, if it wasn't for that work, who knows? But we got to just keep it real. Maybe it wouldn't have been a tone in the vet that would have brought that. That's what the part that I think a lot of people don't want to say. They don't want to admit because for whatever reason it is. But there's obviously some connections here. There's obviously a reason for people coming to certain conclusions and pivot. There's too many parallels to ignore. And I would say, whether they want to admit it or not, I would say thank you guys for actually, doing that and coming and bringing that perspective. Because that perspective, all feelings aside, if what we're trying to hit on is getting to the destination, then everybody, nobody's ever been to that destination from our tribe, right? We have not achieved that. So it's no precedent set for what we need to do. So everybody is just trying to do the best they can and make the contribution that they can to try to see if we can get to that destination. But maybe they built on some things, right? And for every phase of the movement, every phase of the project, we want to take lessons learned, So how I look at what they've done, they've taken things and they've added some things to the movement, and they've energized a younger generation, right? Of people, another generation, and they've allowed the conversation to expand, across, and they've assisted in the conversation expanding across the nation, right? But we also need to take lessons learned because we still haven't gotten to the destination. So we need to take lessons learned from where it's taken off since you know, a lot of people have, since they built upon what you guys have brought to the table, and since that has grown and others have built upon, now we need to learn, say what didn't work well, will work well, and now we need to move to the next phase, which is a more direct, a more precise, a more refined, and a more unified movement to our repair and to our reparations, to our, I use a book from Dr. Darry's book, From Here to Equality. You know, that's how we got to move right now. We got to move right now. And I agree that, you know, I just want to reiterate, we got to keep it honest. Everybody is building upon what we learned in the past. And if people will be lying, there's too many parallels to say that they didn't build upon what you guys brought. Did you ask?
So basically what we're going to go into now is our Naheem, if possible, can you actually bring up the American Slaves website?
Wait, definitely. I want to just make sure the sister is good on time. I didn't want to keep her on too long. So
I'm good.
okay,
I'm good.
all right. Right, hold on 1 second. Can y'all see the website?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it.
You on mute, Graham?
Sorry. Basically, if you all go to books, right, before we begin to close out, we just wanted to show you all a website. Visit this website, slaves-usa.com. I'm just amazed at how many books this brother has written. You know, a lot of people talk, but when you write something, oh goodness gracious, that says a lot, you know. And I'm gonna order every last one of these books, and I'm urging everybody out there to go to this website, the American Descendants of Slaves website, slave-usa.com, and buy some of these books. I'm actually excited. I have the hair standing up on my arm just looking at these books they're not no little. I saw the sister Kathleen raise that book up. It looked like it's about 200-300 something pages thick. So when you writing voluminous information on something like this, you really invested on putting the science out there and putting the truth, you know, out there. So we just wanted to bring this up before we close. So we telling everybody to go get America's Little Black Book. And also, if I'm not mistaken, Sir Dr. Sheldon also said that he talked about his relationship with Dr. Cosby, I think, in several of these books, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Right. So, you know, if you all want to know about the relationship, you all want to know about the work and who we are as the descendants of American slaves, here's the library we showing you all.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And we just want, I guess, Naheem, you want to give the sister the floor before we close out?
Yes, definitely. Sis, please, you know, share with the people how they can contact you. If there are people in Louisville, Kentucky, who want to help assist with the work, maybe some bridges can be built. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm hoping that we can all, like I said earlier, come to the table and put everything that we have on the table and sort everything out and go forward. Because like Brother Josh was saying, we have no precedent, really. You know, they gave us 40 acres and a mule for about this long, and then Andrew Johnson snatched it back. And we've been suffering ever since. So, you know, let the people know how they can contact you if you have any social media, emails, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. You can reach me on Facebook. You can just type in Kathleen Parks, and I'll pop right up. I'm public. All right, and you'll see me, my page standing there with Dr. Norris Shelton when he received his honorary doctorate. Also, you can Google me and I'll come right up. And also on the website, if you click on About, you'll see my photo on there also as First Lady of Reparations for Slavery. And it has our phone numbers and how you can reach me. And also, Grim, you have my phone number. Hello, you have my phone. Click on About.
Yes,
Click
ma'am.
on About. You'll see me, and that's Dr. Higginbotham, who's the Prime Minister. And so everything you want to know about ASI is on that website. But I want to say this. I want to say this. Dr. Shelton is 84 years old. And I would hate for him to make his transition without him getting his just due.
Right.
And it's not so much that he doesn't care. You know what I'm saying? He's a very humble gentleman. He's doing this as a contribution to the world of descendants of American slaves. He says all the time that God asked him and told him to do this. And I believe it because only God could write the way that he writes. It has to be the Most High to be able to write at that level and so prolifically and so eloquently to be able to write that way. And so he is the true father of the American slave cultural movement in America. He is the modern king. He is the Dr. King of the descendants of the American slavery movement. If Dr. King was living today, they would be at the table. They would be knocking on every door in Congress and the Senate and demanding that the paychecks be signed and not insufficient funds, that we, as descendants of American slaves, receive our true birthright and status in America. It's not just about the money, it's about our birthright. We built this country. We are America. We sing America. And it is our time. And unless we come together, young and old, in between, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of conversations about that as well. It doesn't matter. Black Lives Matter, National Action Network, NAACP, we have all these civil rights groups. Yet we are still suffering from genocide, gun violence, poverty, ignorance. Why? Because we are still suffering and we have not solved the after effects of 400 years of systemic racism and slavery in America. And so I'm more concerned about that than I am about emotion and politics and who likes who and who thinks this, and that doesn't matter. What matters is that we as a people, as Dr. King, when he gave his last speech, when he was talking about it's time to go to the economic battlefield, that's where we are now. And so we need to stop our bickering and we need to come together as a people, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. I thank you all so much for having me on this evening. Anything that I can do, anytime you need me, give me a call.
Oh,
Thank
we
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, First
We're
Lady
honored.
Kathleen Parks. We
Coming up.
greatly appreciate you. We know it was short notice. We greatly appreciate you sacrificing your time to be here with us. I'm excited about the show. You know, it's just doing it is one thing, but going back and watching it is another. I can't wait. This was a powerful show, and we just hope to be in contact. Well, I'm gonna be in contact with you, but we just hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical glitches that occurred.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and your story and all the beautiful work that you all are doing. Like you said, this is an addition to humanity, and we greatly appreciate it, sister.
Thank you so much.